I came to this in somewhat in the same way that some of the others have already spoken, is that a lot of people are asking what is going on with sustainability right now. And there's certainly a lot going on that raises some questions, but I very much believe that this is a time for reset in the sustainability area. The reason I feel like I can say that is I was appointed to lead sustainability for Honeywell back in 2004, and that is the first year that any CSO was appointed to a large company. During the next 20 years, we did decarbonize by about 96%, and we improved energy efficiency by more than 70%, which is pretty good for a big old 19th century manufacturer. Since this really was when the organized sustainability area really started, I feel like I have some view on, on how this has all transpired. And some of the things, the conclusions I sort of get from that is that sort of the sustainability enterprise writ large did a tremendous amount of good. But I also think that it was perhaps heading down a couple avenues that were not as productive. And we probably don't have time to talk about all that right now, but if you are interested, you can read my book, which came out in 2019, which sort of covered a lot of these issues. And one of the paths that I think was perhaps a little bit less productive is the heavy emphasis on protocols and reporting standards for their own sakes, rather than on results and integration with other core business principles or requirements. And this is a good time, I think, which I always take every opportunity to do this, is to tell my Obama story, because I think it kind of, illustrates this a bit. In 2015, as Obama was getting ready to go and negotiate the Paris Agreement, he asked the CSOs from some large companies to come down and set targets, so we had sort of some momentum to go into this at a press event. And after the press event, he let the press go and he sat and talked to us for a while. And he asked if there was a concern that some of these reporting protocols and measurement systems were getting too complex and resource intensive, particularly for small and medium-sized enterprises. And this is something I had had a concern with for a while, so I sort of spoke up and said, I could spend 6 months analyzing the sustainability aspects of this lamp that's lit here on this table. I could look at the supply chain and the type of energy used and when it's burning during the day, and I could get you an enormously accurate analysis of the sustainability aspects of this lamp sitting here on the table. All of that analysis would do absolutely nothing to reduce emissions. And so he, being much smarter, and I will not do the voice, said, rather than doing all that, couldn't you just walk over and turn it off? And I was like, yes. And I think that's a really good metaphor for sort of like, what we should be thinking about now. We need a lot of innovation. I think the innovation should be primarily focused on results and on integration with other key business principles. We obviously need accurate data, but those data need to be what we need to learn what we need, and they need to be as efficient as possible. So I'd like to talk about this a little bit in the context of energy, where I think there are great opportunities. And one of the reasons why I think there are such great opportunities is, first of all, we all know that the energy sector is where most greenhouse gases come from. But also, perhaps even more importantly, is that the energy sector is heading into, or is already in, a real firestorm of multiple megatrends. If managed correctly, all of these megatrends will lead to decarbonization. And in my mind, that's where CSOs should be focused now, is managing these connected business objectives as a real expert, and leading us both to decarbonization, but also to improve resilience, cost reduction, and electrical grid support. I work for Verity, which is a manufacturer of ultra-safe battery energy storage systems. So I'm going to be taking it a little bit from that perspective, but you could certainly take this from other perspectives. All right, so let's say you are a CSO and you're going into your board and your CEO and saying, what should we do with the sustainability program? Obviously, you care about decarbonization, but you're going to be much more powerful if you can explain to her how what you want to do will help the company in all these other vectors. One of my colleagues, great colleagues, is a mechanical engineer who, before he came to Verity, was the global VP of both sustainability and energy for JP Morgan. And I really think that's kind of the model for the CSO of the future. So anyway, that's where I really think we need to focus. All right, so decarbonization, might say as a sustainability expert, that is a key objective. Well, managing your energy portfolio can take you a long way towards decarbonization. You can do that, in any number of ways. But first of all, for example, from a distributed energy perspective, you can incorporate batteries to help you leverage your intermittent renewables and turn them into dispatchables. That's what many of our customers are doing. You can also provide support for the grid, so the utility has to rely less on the most polluting peaker plants. And you can also use batteries to replace ICE generators, which has tremendous both greenhouse gas and other contaminant reductions. So right away, if you go in as a CEO and say, I'm going to manage the energy portfolio, you can really take your decarbonization goals further. But that's just one of the goals that you can be managing. The second one is electric grid support. We are facing, I think everyone knows, a potential, very challenging time, at least according to FERC, a very challenging time in our energy system. Right now, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers gives our energy system a D+. And if we think that that's a bad space to be running the world's largest economy in, now let's take and add another 70% load over the next couple of years to this D+ system. That is not a recipe for success. NERC already says that they think that we're going to have a really hard time meeting our energy needs. And if you were to just rebuild the grid, that'd be about a $21 trillion enterprise and would take many, many years. So instead of that, careful management of the energy system, including with distributed energy resources, which again, I think CSOs are very well positioned to lead, can help address the concerns of the grid. Perhaps not entirely, but essentially, what a DER and particularly storage allows you to do is relieve the pressure on the grid for those peak demands. We generally do not have a capacity challenge on the grid. We have a utilization challenge. The problem is everyone wants to use it at the same time. There's some really interesting research out from the Pew Institute recently that's directed towards the large load rule. And that says that distributed energy resources can actually create enough headspace to allow for the construction of a lot more data centers. So again, you're the CSO, you're focused on decarbonization, but if you're also focused on careful energy management, you can do a lot of benefit for the grid as well. Now, one of the things that, I'll have to mention just because of Verity is what a virtual power plant does is it essentially has distributed batteries behind the meter that can be controlled centrally as an energy resource. It's something that Verity is very involved in because we are so safe that we can be installed behind the meter or indoors, and that creates a lot of optionality. But that whole world of virtual power plants is really just starting to come into its own. Now, the next challenge that you can be managing as a CSO for your company is resilience, and this has been managed before. According to EIA, there were 3,500 significant power outages in 2021. A lot of our customers, they talk about things, just think of it in terms of dollars of revenue per hour of lost energy. And depending on the business, it's really can be just, enormous. And so, again, if you're a company that for whom that's important, and essentially it's every company, that's something that you can be talking to your CSO and your CEO and your CFO about. And then the last one is cost. All of the energy management that we've discussed has all kinds of benefits. One of the benefits is it's an incredible revenue generator. We see sometimes, paybacks in 6 months for our batteries because depending on where you are, the price differential about when you're using the grid has huge differentials in it. So the more that you can charge a battery on site, either through on-site renewables or when demand and hence cost is low, and utilize that battery when cost and demand is high, you save a lot of money. You can then take the next step and participate in demand side management with your battery. One of the things that, sort of battery adds something to the demand side picture is demand side historically sort of meant changes in behavior. It meant perhaps curtailing operations, changing the temperature controls in the building. If you have a battery that has a reserve of stored energy that can participate in demand side management, you can essentially participate with a lot less pain behind the meter. So that's another thing that's really great. One of the things I also want to say about this is there's a big time to power aspect to it. Those of you who have, who are talking interconnection and things know that it's often a very long time lag between when you need energy to when the infrastructure can be built and you actually get energy. One of the things that distributed energy resources or batteries allow you to do is to get in there very quickly with a battery, which may manage your existing energy more efficiently and allow more development while you're waiting for that actual infrastructure to come into place. That's what a lot of our customers do on a smaller scale. And as I say, Pew really sees this as one of the solutions for the data centers. So I'll just very briefly talk about, about Viridi. The thing that's different about Viridi, it is, those of you probably know lithium-ion batteries, they have a potential for thermal runaway. We have a really wonderful head of innovation, Dr. J.R. Linna out of MIT, and he developed an architecture that virtually eliminates that risk. And because of that, we've been permitted to install it indoors and near buildings and critical equipment all around the country. We also have one of the most sophisticated communication systems in the battery world. So once it's out there, you remotely diagnose you know exactly what the state of the battery is at all times. It can also connect to other loads and, of course, connect back to the grid. All of that can be monitored centrally. So that's sort of what we do. We think that the fact that we are so safe gives us a lot more optionality in the sort of grid 2.0 space. And I know people talk about this, but I do think this is such if this works on here. If not, I have it just in a data basis. Let's see, just because, this first one that I'm going to show you is a typical LI pack without our system. And this is the test that you have to do to show what happens if you intentionally set a battery on fire in your pack. This is without our system. This is what's happened, and that's something you can tell That's not something you want in your building or your home. This second video is the same pack, same test with our battery. That's a little bit of water from the coolant that comes off. And you could sit this and watch this all day and you would see absolutely nothing. So when I say they're safe, this is what I mean. They are really, really safe. This is the same information in data form. That red is the battery that we intentionally set off. The other two are the ones right next to it. And as you can see, they don't move at all. So just to recap, people are so concerned what's going to happen with sustainability. I think we've already heard it a couple times today. I think that sustainability professionals have got to, I think it was said earlier, grow up a little bit and realize that you can care deeply about the environment and sustainability, but you also have to be integrated with your company's business objectives. I think that the energy system has a tremendous opportunity to do that now because there is so much going on. And if you're in there and helping to drive it, then you can have all of those mega trends have the outcome of decarbonization. So that's what I want to say. Now, if anybody else repeats the same things, I think that's going to be a problem.